Welcome to the next episode of Northern Chorus Fantasy Pints Podcast. I'm sunburnt. How are you, James?
Not sunburnt, because I've been indoors all weekend.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, I think we've had difficulties booking one in this week because you seem to be a man in demand in the in terms of gigs, work. So I'm surprised.
Well, I wouldn't use those words. I'd say very in demand. No, yeah, it's been a hectic week of gigs. Matthew Street, it's
like in Hangover when they say Bangkok's got you.
Matthew Street has well and truly got me now. It's
you can tell it's taking its toll.
It's another world. I'll be honest. It's another world. I've had gigs on a Monday and Tuesday night that are on par with, if not better than, most gigs you could have elsewhere on a Saturday. So I shouldn't complain.
It also means that once again we've got your new backdrop, which we thought may have been for 1 week and 1 week only.
Yeah, the lovely brown leather. You love to see it.
Yeah. I mean, you've managed to leave the house and still have a better backdrop than me. So.
Yeah, well, this is true. But I'm
just used to.
You have the option to move. You have the option to move, and you've chose not to, Sean. So.
Well, yeah, but
that's on you.
The podcast today, we've delved a couple of months back, haven't we? To a singer-songwriter who's living in London, but I think you knew of him before the podcast, didn't you?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, actually. It was great to have him on and speak to him at the time because it kind of doubled up as a bit of a catch-up. He's from Chorley originally. He's on a program called Guitar Star, or he was on a program called Guitar Star when he was a young, sprightly lad. One of the best guitarists I've ever seen, really. He's fantastic. And he is now writing his own music, creating his own tracks. So that's great to see. And he's living in London while he's studying. I'm giving you his entire story before he's about to give you his entire story.
Well, I think because there's been a couple of months gap, it's like it'll be a nice one to listen back to. I do remember him giving us a bit of a story about the title of his album, which
Inside Jessica's Notebook. Well, I'm looking forward to editing this and getting it released on Thursday. Just for context for the listeners, we're recording this on Tuesday, 2 days before release day. And yeah, it's definitely an interesting episode. Jake is a great speaker, a funny guy, and he had some good stories. So I hope you enjoy.
And we're joined by another special guest this week. We've got a young singer-songwriter from Chorley who's living in London at the minute. It's Jake Heaton. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Sean. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I think, obviously, this is the first time we spoke. James, you're familiar with Jake from the local music scene, aren't you?
Yeah, we've known each other a couple of years. Met at the Shed in Chorley, which is a fantastic bar. Get down there if you can. At the time, didn't realise Jake was about 12 years old.
Oh, he's done me that. Yeah, 12 years old.
Yeah,
then things changed and I started working behind the bar there.
Yes, yeah. Again,
I was 18 when I worked behind the bar there, not 12, by the way.
No, let's not incriminate Steve. You're very, very mature beyond your years, mate. I have to say, I hate complimenting you, but that's.
No, I appreciate that. That's one of the compliments I'll take. I appreciate it.
19 now.
20
now.
Close.
So we must have been 17 when we met, I think.
Yeah, but I think.
Yeah, maybe around my 16th birthday. Yeah. I think I just turned 16, James.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Well, I think we were going to sort of rewind it back to 2016 when to kick off the interview, because you were involved in a guitar competition, weren't you, on Sky Arts? You were a finalist, I think. Could you tell us about how that came about?
Yeah, that was one of the best experiences I've had, actually. That came off the back of my guitar tutor, Mark Eastham, who was teaching me at the time. Skyouts were just calling around, local people being like, do you know any guitar players? And he was asked, do you know any students? And he was like, yeah, Jake, but he's only 15, 16. So we don't know how well it was going to go. Anyway, we went down to South Bank, London. Just ended up getting through round after round after round. I got to do some really crazy stuff, like record at Abbey Road, play the piano that Paul played. Got to play at Ronnie Scott's with George Benson, the jazz great. And that was really the pivotal point when I realised this is something that I'm going to have to do now. There's no turning back now.
And how long had you've been playing guitar up to that point?
I started playing guitar when I was about 4 or 5, off the back of my dad bringing home a Bon Jovi CD from the show. Then as soon as that was on in the car, that was This Is a Point. Went home, found Mark, and he's been teaching me ever since. Same guitar tutor for about 16 years.
You still have lessons now?
Always learning.
For the record, I've seen Jake play, and he does not need any more guitar lessons.
Trust me, I do. That's lies.
Let the rest of us catch up, mate. Let the rest of us catch up.
And you've moved down to London now. So when did you go down to London, and what was the reason for that move?
Last September, I moved down to London because I joined ACM, Academy of Contemporary Music, down there, where I'm studying professional music performance. So I've lived there since last September. It's been a blast. Just being in the city, I definitely feel like a very small fish in a massive, massive pond, like a huge pond. It's strange almost coming from a town, you know everyone, all the promoters, all the fellow bands, who your competition are, to going somewhere. You don't know who's around the corner. So, but very fortunate to be in that situation.
Yeah, I think this is possibly a slightly unfair question because you haven't had or yet been able to have a true experience of what the London music scene's like because of the pandemic. But in your experience so far, how would you compare the London music scene to the sort of Northwest that you've grown up with?
A lot more diverse, a lot more diverse. From what I have seen of it, which granted isn't a lot, and speaking on this, I could be very wrong, but the open mics that I've been to, the very little shows that I've played, the support acts that I'm given, or the people that are playing at the open mics, there is the biggest array of musicians I've ever seen. You can go from someone reading poems to playing the harmonica for a half an hour set. It is crazy, and the amount of people that these niche talents bring in it's unreal to see, and it just goes to show that the music business is not dead, like some people say it is.
Yeah, and there's a classic statement from a northerner moving down south, isn't it? That you walk through London and people don't wave, don't smile at you. So has that been true?
In the centre of London, yeah, people have. At the end of the day, people have places to be, and to be fair, when I'm in the centre of London, there is usually a reason for me being there. So maybe I subject to keeping my head down as well. But I'm lucky. My local area is quite a family area, so everyone says hi. But yeah, I can understand that saying as well. And I've never paid above £6 for a pint. Thought that would be important to mention. So people who say it's expensive, I don't think that's true.
Well, I think everywhere's catching up now, aren't they? That's the problem.
Yeah, definitely. In my local down here, I probably pay about £4.90 now.
Yeah, still a bit more expensive than you'd expect up this way, but
well, I don't know anymore. But,
catching up slowly, definitely.
Sean's in Manchester, so it's possibly getting that way in Manchester.
Yeah, actually,
I'm quite fortunate to be in Wigan, so don't pay much more than £2 a pint up here.
You got to be careful. It's the country pubs that get you near me.
Yeah,
in the middle of nowhere, it's the country pubs that sting you. And I've definitely been stung many a time.
You've been out plenty since the pubs reopened last week. I've noticed pretty much every night you've been in a different area.
The last 4 days, we have really been making the most of it. As soon as they were lifted, I actually came home because I had on Thursday night last week, I had a live stream show, which went really well. Was really apprehensive on how it was going to go, just in regards to streaming and stuff like that. But people showed the numbers pulled in and it was really good. I played it with my friend Matt, so I did 45 minutes and he did 45 minutes, and numbers were consistent throughout. And really strange feeling, actually. I'm talking to the camera where people are watching. Normally I'm gauging the reception, I'm asking how people are doing, and it's a really strange feeling talking to no one, yet there is someone there.
Yeah.
I suppose it's one example of like musicians having to be creative, all this sort of live
diverse
stream
as well. Yeah, it is. No, it was really good, and it was actually really successful. But again, these are the skills that young musicians now have to have. You've got to be able to work TikTok. You've got to be able to do a split screen video with your mate that lives across the world, because this is the way it's going.
I've not tried that. I know you can split an Instagram story, can't you? But is there not just a ton of latency on that? Could you and a mate jam on an Instagram live story on a split screen without latency?
No.
Yeah,
no,
I don't think so.
There's obviously issues that have yet to still be resolved, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be some sort of latency. So, in regards to you can put it together on Movie Maker or something like that. Play to a click track.
Yeah, and I must admit, I owe you an apology, because I did promise I was going to tune in live and watch the live stream. But what I hadn't considered when I said that was I actually had my first gig back after lockdown at the exact same time. So what I did do is come back and catch up and watch it sort of.
I was actually going to say that this is a good time for a good plug. You can actually rewatch that back on YouTube for anyone who is interested in seeing last week's live stream and see how it went. You can just type it.
It's fantastic, and it's definitely worth watching. And one thing I noticed is, because I mean, throughout the pandemic, I've done a few live streams myself, but I've always done it just on Facebook Live, with recorded on the phone and with the laptop in front of me so I can see the comments and interact. But you didn't. Camera was away from you, wasn't it? So
we didn't mess around. We got the lights.
Really well produced. Yeah,
it was all recorded, going into an interface into the camera. We didn't mess around. We thought, if this is going to be, if this is going to go wrong, this is going to go tragically wrong. So we might as well make the most out of it. But thankfully, it didn't.
And we'll talk about your new music now then, because you've obviously been busy because you've had an album out, haven't you? On across all streaming platforms, is it?
Inside Jessica's Notebook was released last August, and that was a collection of work from when I was living away in New Zealand to when I got back. The tracks just added up, and I said to Tom Hale, who plays some guitar for me and produces and mixes my album, I said, listen, we've got a load of tracks here. Let's just do it. And it went down really well. I couldn't ask for it to go any better.
Yeah, and
it is fantastic.
I was going to say, could you explain the title to
us? This is actually the first time I mentioned the title. I normally try and hide this question, but we can talk about it.
An exclusive.
So, this is weird. Okay, I'd like to hear your two thoughts on this. I very rarely dream, or remember your dreams. Yeah.
Right.
But when I do, there is always this one girl in the stream, and she's called Jessica. Yeah. Don't ask me how I know.
Is this a fictional girl?
In my head. In my head. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but is this girl based on a real life person, or is the image?
I've never seen anyone that looks like Jessica.
Right.
Completely fabricated in my head. Okay. I have never seen Jessica in my whole life, but she's in every dream that I've had, which isn't it's not regular, but she is in every dream, hands down. Whether I remember a few, maybe I've been out for a meal, just turned to the left and she'd been sat there. It's super weird. Anyway, so, the album kind of dictates what will be inside Jessica's Notebook. Track 1, which is called Jessica's Notebook, kind of gives you an insight of what would be in it. If I could read her notebook. How weird is that?
I digress slightly, but there's a podcast I listen to called Tailenders where they got a bloke called Ian Wallace on who analysed people's dreams, and I'd be very interested for you to get in touch with Ian to see what he has to say about this consistent dream.
It's so weird, and I can picture her now. I've actually never seen anyone that even resembles her.
I've got a recurring dream myself, but it's not as
Tell me.
As yours. Mine's basically just a big plane, and it just does a loop-de-loop and then comes through this cliff gap and somehow crashes every time. But crashes in different ways. But I don't die. Everyone survives and gets off. But it's I'm just flying through the air. I'm not the pilot. I'm a passenger looking out the window, and it'll either like spin or do a loop-de-loop or something, and it goes through this like canyon. Somehow tries to like turn sideways through a canyon, and inevitably comes to a slow crash.
Inside the Plains Notebook, James Riley's next album.
Yeah,
Inside the Plains Notebook.
I wish I had some weird dream to add, but I rarely remember.
How strange is that? That's weird, that, isn't it? I have yet to see Jessica.
Yeah. What are you gonna do when you finally meet her? When you bump into this girl that you see in your dreams all the time on the street, what's gonna happen?
that day probably will not come.
We can probably be sure of that.
I think about it sometimes. It's just weird. It is just so weird. But yeah, that's the story behind Inside Jessica's Notebook. But not all the songs are related to the title.
I was not expecting that answer.
And
delve more into the album, then go on. I think
it's quite a diverse album as well. You've got songs like. It definitely shows my repertoire from. You can tell the periods where I was going through. I was into Bon Jovi, the heavier kind of commercial rock. Periods where I was into Mayer, you get songs like Holy War or Porchlight, maybe more country funk based and stuff like that. Or even a new Irish singer called Ryan McMullen that I'm into. You can tell the slower ones like A Call I Can't Explain, It's Not a Goodbye. You can tell the periods, and it's interesting for me to now look back and think what was going on when I was writing them songs. I wish I was a guy that, I always say this, I wish I was a guy that could write about an experience he's never been through. So if you're listening back to them, they relate to something, and I hope they relate to you guys as well.
This is the exact dilemma that I have, is that my life is just boring, really. In terms of,
I mean, you just had a child, James, but
yeah, but but the problem is, I can't find. My brain just doesn't give me the words to put down. People say write a poem and turn it into a song. I can't do that either. So I just stick to singing other people's tunes and making money from it that way.
Yeah, I am fortunate to be able to, put a melody to some chords and make it sound half decent. And, that is where most of my living actually comes from, ghostwriting for people as well. So for people who don't know it, some of the songs that you hear from Northwest artists, half of them are actually probably written by me. And that's where a lot of my income actually comes from.
Yeah. You can't give any of those names, or?
I'd get killed.
That's something I did not know about you. So that's interesting.
Yeah, co-writing or just fully writing. Yeah, we can talk about New Zealand.
Let's talk about New Zealand, definitely.
I have an auntie and uncle that live out in New Zealand, so this is where this all stemmed from, Charlotte and Andrew. And last January of 2020, I flew out there, stunned by the coronavirus pandemic, but we can get to that bit. But in the short amount of time, 4.5 months I was there, I really did have the time of my life. Got my first tattoo. Worked. It's a Japanese cherry blossom, and it does have
good for the audio. Good for the audio.
Yeah. I had the time of my life. First tattoo. Worked on fixing a boat with my cousin, and I was really lucky when I got out there. My auntie and uncle were like, "Right, here's the apartment. We're now going back to the UK." So I was like, "Right." Sounds like it was first time meeting my Kiwi cousins, but I watched Queen with Adam Lambert. Second row back. That was an unreal experience as well.
I can imagine.
That was good.
We had tickets to see Elton John as well, but that was cancelled.
And how long were you planning to be there for?
5 and 6 months, something like that. I did have a return date, but I can't remember what it was because all things were up in the air. It was at the time where people were stopped buying toilet papers and pasta, and you didn't know how long this was going to go on for. If you'd have said to me, this is over in New Zealand in about 4 months' time, I would have stayed and then came back for uni. But, at the time, I was away from my parents, I was away from my friends. No one knew when the end of it was. You know, there's light at the end of the tunnel now, but back then it was very dark.
Yeah.
So
And of course,
strange
the
feeling.
news at the time was effectively, if you leave your house, you're going to die. So
No one really
I
knew
don't-
anything about it.
I don't blame you for getting back as soon as you could. And I
But
think
there must have been
you
some. Sorry, go on.
stayed for about 3 months, and you came back end of March, April. think.
Around that, maybe late April.
We have messages where we discussed this, so let me find out.
So I went out in January. Mid-April?
So we messaged on the 4th of April,
I was
2020,
home.
and you were home. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I must have just got back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I picked up some crazy summer jobs. You know, last summer was such a whirl.
You obviously took some of the time not being able to gig. You used it a hell of a lot more creatively than me in that, you know, lockdown and sort of you're home by April, lockdown all the way through summer, and then in August the album comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I was tied up with a child, but
it would have been nice to have done something with the album, whether it be a release party or, you know, some sort of small tour. But we were where we were. And, you know, I was moving to London in September, and I didn't want the weight of the album being on my shoulders when I was there. You know, you got to make new friends and stuff like that. So I'm glad I released it when it did. You know, we did a special run of merch, special run of CDs, vinyls. They all flew out. So I couldn't have asked for anything better off the back of that, actually. But now it's all about bringing in the plays. You know, still I actually have a show at the end of May in London, 20th of May, and that's sold out, you know, without me even promoting it. So I'm really looking forward to that show. Finally seeing the whites of people's eyes would be something that I've forgotten. Might release another batch of tickets if there's interest, but might just leave it sold out.
Excellent. We actually just discussed just before you joined that Blossoms are doing a gig supported by Zuzu and the Lathams on, is it the 2nd of May, Sean?
2nd of May. Is it a week on Sunday?
Yeah, I was listening about this on the radio today, and they were saying no social distancing, no masks. You just got to do a lateral flow test beforehand, and they're going to have all sorts of scientists there. You know, air movement scientists. You know, depicting wind movement and stuff like that. So, and it's all part of the government's test to see what's going to be going on. Yeah,
It's going to be interesting to see.
Definitely.
What the result of that is. I know that there was a huge outdoor gig in Barcelona recently, wasn't there, where everyone was tested beforehand. I don't know who it was. Maybe that was.
I'm not sure.
Was
I know
it
was Primavera Sound did something. I'm not sure how many people ended up going to that, but I know Primavera Sound was cancelled shortly after. So
even for my show on the 20th, it's all socially distanced. You're on tables with people in your household, and it's all section based as well. So for the act you come to see, whether you've come to see me or the support act, you put in sections. So the first 2 acts are section 1, second 2 are section 3. So you moved through.
Right.
So you move through. So
and that's what date in May?
The 20th of May, Thursday, the 20th of May in London.
So that will be indoors then.
Yeah. Again, keep your eye out for maybe another batch of tickets released, but we've got to follow the government's guidance as well, really.
Excellent. Well, when we publish this, we'll be tagging, putting all your links in the description on all platforms and stuff, mate.
Nice.
So if a link does come up for some more tickets, just drop it to us in a message and we'll add it on.
I'll send you some links.
Yeah. Okay. So earlier you touched on a few inspirations behind the album. So let's go on to your Fantasy Pints, which is the theme of the podcast. Again, for anyone who hasn't listened, it's 3 musicians, past or present, that you could go for a drink with one evening. You can choose any 3. Who's your first and why?
So I spoke to James briefly about this the other day, and I have not picked the obvious option after James making a comment suggesting that I would do. The obvious option for anyone that didn't know would be Mr. John Mayer. I'm a mega fan. So
So could you tell us why you've not chosen him first?
Because
let's talk about John Mayer afterwards, maybe, because I know that you do take a lot of inspiration from John Mayer, and I also know that you could probably talk about it for about 2 hours. And
this is an important point. Let's bring this up. Once, I'd been out for a few drinks with my dad in Chorley Town Centre on a Thursday night before James's host of the Sheds Open Mic. Do you remember this night, Jed? And I came in fairly Larry, as it was.
Yeah.
Knocked back a few more drinks, got up. I think my set was, maybe I played for about half an hour. I talked about John Mayer's new song that was being released the next day for maybe about 25 minutes. I think I only ended up playing one.
Yeah, I think it was from memory, it was one huge mashup in E minor. And then that lasted for about 7 minutes, and the remainder was talking about May's new album.
I guess I just feel like it came out the day after that. That is a moment that I'll never forget. No one listened to me. No one listened to me.
I was listening.
Yeah, thinking, please get
intently.
off. Please get off. So my 3 musicians. First one, probably the most logical one out the group, John Bon Jovi. Again, another massive inspiration, you know? An American rock band. I've chosen him just because of the absolute beast of a company he's created. From started as 4 lads making music in a garage, but now is some sort of massive enterprise, you know, with a record label. They sell tickets, they sell music, they go on tour. You know, they've got their merch, they've got wine, they've got their pasta sauce. Just everything about it is very impressive to put under Bon Jovi's name. You know, he's got the John Bon Jovi Soul Foundation, the 2 restaurants. Just everything about it is amazing. And I'd love to just talk to him about how he got to that point, because that is something that I will always idolize.
Nice. Okay.
Next. Now, these 2 are brothers, and I'm sure these will probably be a common answer. I put them together because they're brothers, but either of them would do. Noel and Liam Gallagher. What a session that would be. That would be
splitting up a fight for most of it.
Yeah, but I'd be filming it, and I'd get the views.
Is this pick 2, or is this pick 2 and 3? You'd have them both. Are we saying?
I would probably go more towards Noel if I had to pick between them. I'd have either.
Please do. Let's talk about Noel, because
we'll go for Noel.
Yeah, LG I think will be a very, very popular choice.
Yeah, let's hope that. So my second one would be Noel Gallagher. What a session that would be. That would be some sort of hardcore session. Yeah. You know, I think nowadays he's a bit of a dark horse when it comes to his antics, but I'm sure they're still very relevant, actually. And frankly, you know, some of the tunes that he's wrote, like Champagne Supernova, and like, what is that about? Like, where has that come from? What part of your life has that come from? You know,
slowly walking down the hall faster than a cannonball.
Like my favorite one, Talk Tonight. Like, I'd love to hear more about the girl that was labeled the girl that saved Oasis. How he flew and he didn't even know her name. You know what I mean?
I'd imagine a songwriter would always associate with Noel, wouldn't they? Over Liam. Like, you could obviously like the 2 of them, but if you write songs, then I can understand that you'd be Noel.
Yeah, Noel is definitely overlooked in musicians that are into music.
What do you think about the direction that Noel's taken with the High Flying Birds in comparison to obviously the slightly different sound that Oasis had?
I'll compare it to what Liam's doing. I think Liam wants the plays. Liam wants the headline slots. Liam wants some money in his bank. And that shows in his music. You know, there is that layer of smoothness on top of all of his tracks that just was on none of the Oasis tracks. With Noel, I would resemble his music to be what Noel wants to write and what Noel wants to produce. You know, Noel isn't bothered if he's getting headline slots. Yeah. He knows that his fans will be there no matter what. Whereas I think Liam needs to be a bit more commercial. You know, he needs to have that extra tint on his voice to make it sell. Sorry, but that's it.
Oh, yes. It's definitely reflected. I think Liam probably has a hell of a lot more headline shows than Noel.
For sure, you know.
Actually, Sean and I have seen one of Noel's headline shows at Neighbourhood Weekender in 2019, which was fantastic.
I would love to watch Noel.
He's really good. He's fantastic. I am due to see Liam headline in Leeds in August. So
I saw Liam 2 summers ago at Old Trafford in Manchester. That was a crazy gig, but
yeah, I was there.
I think with Liam, it's more of the hype. You know, I think you tend to get that with the front men of the band. It's the hype of going to see Liam rather than Liam's music. Whereas if you go and watch Noel, the majority of it is you like his music and his band's music.
Yeah, but most importantly, how do you think Noel Gallagher would get on with John Bon Jovi?
Oh, I didn't realise that this was like a dinner party.
Oh yes, so we should have given you the heads up beforehand. But imagine yourself sat around a table. There's 4 people there. It's you and your 3 guests all at once.
Oh wow! Well, actually, I was watching an interview with John Bon Jovi, and he was talking about Liam. And apparently, somehow Liam got hold of John's number and used to just call him in the middle of the night to tell him his music is awful. Like every night for 3 weeks, just to tell him his music's not good at all.
Like a very Liam thing. In which case, thank God that you chose Noel over Liam.
I know. I have seen a picture of John and Noel together at some music awards. So, next one, and my final one. This is an interesting one. I've picked Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, the guitar player of Black Sabbath, because I've had a chance to do some session work with Black Sabbath in the past, and I worked with him previous to that on the show on Guitar Star, and he really was like a granddad type figure to me. He really helped me through the show, and you know, I had many a mentor through the show, but he was definitely some of the easiest ones to work with. You know, it was so chill back. He let me do what I wanted to do rather than trying to shape my playing. So that was fantastic, and I didn't have the chance to actually sit down and have a beer with him, but I bet he has some stories about Ozzy.
What was it? Yeah. What was the Netflix show recently where it was Ozzy Osbourne was on it? Was it the Motley Crue? Was it about the Motley Crue?
I think so. There was
there's a one where he was sniffing ants from the side of a pool. I think.
I've not seen this show.
There's a story that
I promise you I've not made it up.
There's a story that goes around about Black Sabbath when they were partying in LA, and Tony wasn't there, and Tony thought he'd play a bit of a joke and press the intercom and say like the police are here. Obviously, you can imagine what substances are in the house. So Ozzy took it upon himself to take this plate of said substances to the bathroom and dispose of it where he would be putting it in his body, a lot of it. And then from there, just to come out, just to find out that it was a joke, and Ozzy then had to be taken to hospital.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just some stories like that. That's that's what shapes it. Nah, literally. That was where Ozzy's soul left his body.
Yeah.
Yet to be seen ever again. Has anyone seen that picture of Sharon of ironing Ozzy's hair?
No.
Tell me someone's seen that.
I'm gonna have to have a look for this now.
I'll rack it up now.
This can't be true. Oh wow.
It is. Can you whack it on screen, James? I've got it. You got it.
Oh, you'll have to show because I've got a blur.
Like what? Like what is going on there? Wow. Like why is she ironing Ozzy's hair? So I think they're pretty substantial ones, and not ones that are going to cause too many issues for me. I would imagine, because I've seen John and Noel together, and I can imagine Tony getting on with anyone. To be fair,
yeah.
No, I think he'll be quite a unique choice for you as well. I can't imagine him coming up too many times.
Yeah,
Bon Jovi too. Well, I suppose it depends who we're going to ask. We're going to try and get a variety, so we get a few different choices. But
yeah. I wasn't. Yeah. I had to pick John Bon Jovi just because what he has done and the business he's created under his name isn't just playing shows. It's something really impressive that needs to be commended on. a three-piece
We're
podcast.
going to create a tally, I think, for the more popular choices to count how many times each person.
Yeah, it was a close one. I did have John Mayer written down, but I relate to early John Mayer when he was growing up a little bit too much to talk about, and it just hits a bit differently, because he used to. Sometimes he might not have the best reputation, and
in which case you're not going to like my next question. You've taken a lot of inspiration from John Mayer, so tell us all about that.
John Mayer. Where do I even start? At my uni, I've got 2 posters of him up on my wall. What a goat. Greatest of all time. His songwriting, his guitar playing, his collaborations, they're up there. And before I was into Mayer, I was in a bit of a box, with my playing, and who I was covering. But getting into Mayer, I learned about like Tom Misch and Anderson .Paak and all these other amazing artists. So that's why I'm massively into Mayer, and he's an unreal guitar player.
See, I've heard of obviously all 3 of those artists. I didn't know they were linked. So what's the link to John Mayer?
John Mayer loves Tom Misch.
Right.
John Mayer sends him all of his prototype guitars and stuff like that, and that's how I got into Tom Misch, and then obviously Tom Misch into Anderson .Paak, and then Yusef Davis releasing that album. That kind of soul funk genre. It's not where the money is, but it's definitely where my heart lies in guitar playing.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well answered.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, again, I hate to say it, but I relate to young John Mayer just a little bit too much. Yeah. Let's leave it at that. If anyone knows anything about young John Mayer, don't hate me. Please still listen to our music.
I know nothing about young John Mayer, so
good.
I'm sure people can Google the stories and probably didn't know much about it until now.
Until now.
Search, and now they're going to think of you as a piece of shit.
Win some, you lose some.
So, take 5 minutes, mate. Plug everything you've got going on. Plug your social media. Plug what's coming up. Any new singles. Any new albums, any shows? We've obviously discussed the show on the 20th of May. Take it away.
Let me just think in what order I'm going to say this. So you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Facebook, Instagram. If you just search my name, Jake Heaton, it'll all come up. If you're looking for guitar videos, Instagram's the best place to go. If you're looking for updates, Facebook's the best place to go. But if you want to listen to all my music, you can just get that on all streaming platforms. But if you want a physical copy, we do have some physical copies left and some merch. If you did like my music that much, to buy that. As I said, I've got the London show coming up. I don't think we'll be releasing any more tickets, but if anyone off the back of this does want some tickets, if there's enough interest, we will be doing some. So maybe it's worth dropping me a DM. And I'm sure we can sort something. And yeah.
Where can they drop you a DM?
You can drop me a DM on Instagram, and I'll be very kind to reply.
And your handle is?
My handle is I'm Jake Heaton, as it is on all social media. I'm Jake Heaton. I am JakeEheaton on all social media. Apart from Spotify and stuff, you can just search Jake Heaton on that.
Excellent. And I've obviously prompted Jake to say that, but the links will be below in the description on all platforms. So you can drop yourself down there, give it a little click, drop him a like, drop him a follow, give him some comments, and look out for tickets for his shows.
Yep.
Definitely.
And thanks very much for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Lads, thank you for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure. And I don't think, I'm going to say something here. If anyone is into really good cover music, listen to James Riley. Go and see one of his gigs that he's got. Because he is one of the most talented cover artists I've seen and one of the most talented that I know as well. So it's worth going to look at James's stuff.
Massively appreciate that. You're the first guest to stroke my ego, so thank you. We'll post your episode sooner.
I was very surprised Clinton Baptiste didn't do that.
I was disappointed, and then we had Joe, and Joe Astley didn't select me. Jake, you also haven't selected me as one of your musicians that you'd like to have a pint with. So we're unfortunately 0 from 3.
Don't worry, I don't think my name's going to be on there.
We'll get you on at some point.
Yeah, get me on in a year, and I'll say you, James.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Jake, thank you so much for joining us, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers for having me, guys.
And no doubt we will be able to have a physical in-person catch-up sooner or later.
Definitely. I'm sure we'll be around for some beers soon.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
See ya.
Nice one.
Enjoy. See you later.
Bye. Yeah, so that was Jake Heaton delving into the archives, our very short archives, to finally release it, which is good.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a shame that we weren't able to release it any sooner. But as we've kind of mentioned in some previous episodes, there's been a lot going on in the world, and we just happen to have been sort of capturing artists and people that are really relevant to very current situations. So that has kind of led to Jake's episode being pushed back and back, which I'm in some ways quite sorry for, because, as I say, it was a really good episode. We really enjoyed speaking to him. So I hope you enjoyed that, because he's a really fun guy. He's fantastic on the guitar. He's a fantastic musician. Go and listen to his work. And I'm sure we'll hear a lot more of him in the future.
Yeah. And yeah, we did float the idea of sort of maybe going to 2 a week, but I think there's enough pressure, especially now with your hectic schedule, to get 1 done a week. So we'll stick to that. But obviously, as it was a month or so ago, not sure how long ago it was, I think your background's definitely changed. Don't think I'll look the same. I'm not sure because I've not seen it back yet, but I think the only constant will be my beloved Venetian blinds, and that warms my heart.
Yeah, although how disappointed are we going to be when I get home and come to edit this and we realise that in the recording with Jake, the blinds were open?
No, the blinds only ever opened once, and that was for Felix Hill.
Okay, so we should be fine then. What about the fan? Let's hedge your bet now. And
the fan?
But yeah, it's over your other shoulder, actually.
Right, so so the fan, I never put the fan away after the last heat wave, and it's finally came to fruition now that I can use it again. So I think the long game paid off.
Nice. I like that. Excellent. Well, I hope you enjoyed. We will continue, despite things getting a little bit more manic. We will be continuing to post on Thursdays. So have a look out for the next episode, which will be next Thursday on all platforms. Sean, where can people find us on social media?
Twitter @NorthernChorus_, Facebook Northern Chorus UK, Instagram Northern Chorus, and see the pinned tweet on Twitter to potentially win two tickets to Why Not Festival. Enjoy. Yeah.
And the last thing is, if you're an audio listener, we don't often plug this, but if you're an audio listener, if you found us on Spotify, for example, and you think, wouldn't mind knowing what these two lovely voiced fellas look like, we post every single one of these podcasts on our YouTube channel with video attached. They are just Zoom calls with myself and Sean and the guest, and we always have a video version of the podcast alongside the audio clip. So you can find that on YouTube, and that's again just Northern Chorus.
Yeah, I think the only bit that was never filmed or shown was the Clinton Baptiste bit, and we just thought it'd be too powerful for the screen, didn't we? So we thought
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When we introduced Alex Lowe, we did have the video, but we didn't want to overwhelm the viewers with the spiritual beast of that is Clinton Baptiste so early on in the life of the podcast. So we felt it best to keep him off video.
Now might also be a good time to mention that the Fantasy Pint stars aligned and Ben Osborne went to see Clinton Baptiste in
Love that.
show. It's I feel like a proud father. Like you, James.
I love it. See, we're bringing everyone together. Yeah, you could now say I'm a father of 2/3 if you include Clinton and Ben, and obviously Blossom, my beloved 1-year-old daughter. Anyway, I think we've spoken for long enough. Sean, it's been a pleasure, albeit swift. I hope you all enjoyed Jake's episode, and we will see you next Thursday.
Goodbye.